What's up guys, my name's Hugh Miller and welcome to the third Nancy Drew Walkthroughs Q&A. Last episode was quite long and we had a ton of questions, so fortunately this week should be shorter as there aren't nearly as many. Regardless, we do have some really good questions in here, so let's not waste any more time and dive right in. This first question comes from Katia, I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing her name, and she wants to know, are there any updates on Amelia Darnell? That's a great question. A question that I've been asked several times, and a question of which that I unfortunately have to answer with nothing crazy at the moment. Really anything that's on our social media. Go check us out, by the way. We're Airtight Alibi Productions on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter or Amelia Darnell. The link for all that is in the description below. Go check us out because we got a ton of updates coming every few months or so. And we really just sort of give a breakdown of what's happening, and they're always quite in-depth, so it's always worth checking those out. But as of right now, I know the script is more or less done, and the art team is still working away to get the art done. And yeah, I'm very excited about what the game is turning into. It's just, I just get giddy when I think about it, because being a Nancy Drew fan and being able to be a part of the wonderful team that's making this game, it's just super exciting, and I cannot wait for everyone to play it, because believe me, it's gonna be amazing. Next question comes from Pink Puffin. Will you be doing a playthrough or review of the new Miss Clue game, and what do you think of the Miss Clue series in general? I do not think that I will be doing a review or playthrough of the new Miss Clue game, and if I do, it probably won't be on this channel. I think the Miss Clue games are kind of quirky, they're kind of charming, they're cute, they're funny, I guess say funny. I've played, I think, only one of them, and I've seen Arglefunf play through a couple of them, and I like that they definitely have the style of the old Nancy Drew games. Like, that's cool, and that kind of is, it's kind of nostalgic and definitely reminiscent of the past. But my biggest issue is more the quality of the game and the narrative, that it doesn't quite work for me. They just kind of don't make sense a lot of the time. And again, I don't know how they've progressed, because again, I haven't played all of them, and I haven't seen people play through all of them either, so I can't quite offer too much. But I think they've definitely got a quirk and a charm to them, but I probably won't be doing a playthrough or review of them on this channel, as for the most part, this channel is just Nancy Drew / Her Interactive related. And obviously I cover Amelia Darnell on here, but that's, I think, warranted because I'm kind of on that team. So yeah, anyways, short answer, probably not for the review and playthrough. And my review of watching, various things about the series is that they're quirky, they got their charm, and good on the team for continuing the series. Next question here comes from Codelink, my buddy Codelink, and he says, any Nancy Drew books you'd want to be adapted into a game? This is very embarrassing for me to say. I've read a total of 4 Nancy Drew books, and 3 of them have already been turned into a game. The other one that I've read is The Clue, The Satin Mask, and I actually joined the River Heights Buzz podcast, and we discussed that on there. So if you want to go check out that podcast, take a look at the link in the description for it. We had a great chat there with Candace and Alexa. Thank you guys very much for having me on. So go check that out, but I don't quite think it would work as a Nancy Drew game, and I will have to be reading more of the books to have a better answer for that. So sorry I can't answer that one too well. Next question here comes from Bevel. I'm gonna call you Bevel. If you had the opportunity to chat with Her Interactive on behalf of your subscribers about the future of Nancy Drew games, what would you ask them to change? Now that's a great question, because I've obviously got my own opinions, but if I'm speaking on behalf of a group of people, in this case nearly 2,000 people, I would probably say, based on what I've seen, I would want a change in the navigation system. Well, maybe not a change in the navigation system, but an improvement, because what they have, I think, is good so far for Midnight in Salem, but it needs work. It's not perfect. It's kind of all over the place. Like, it functions, but that doesn't mean it works. So I think improving the navigation system would be at the top of the list. Improving coordination between departments and outsourcing companies, I think, is a huge thing, because it seemed like for a lot of things in the game, there just wasn't a great sense of communication, and some things just seemed all over the place, and it was kind of frustrating. I would also, actually, you know what? Scratch that. This is the top of the list. I would improve communication with the fans. I want to know what's going on behind the scenes. I want to see these updates. I want to see concept art. I want to know even just that they're working on it. Just verbal communication is good enough for me. But it's obviously been lacking strongly over the last several years. And I think that having an improved communication with fans is just, that could be a huge game changer for the community. I'd also like to see, okay, this one's a bit of a tough one. I wrote down a decrease in dialogue because Midnight in Salem had a ton of dialogue, as I'm sure you're well aware. But to counter that, you could have that much dialogue if you had a longer game. But because Midnight in Salem is rather short, and most of the game is simply talking to people, having a longer game length, which would be like improving the level design, bringing in more puzzles, having a bit more of a complex story, even just bigger locations, improving the length of time that you're playing the game rather than talking to people, I think that could be huge. So I would say definitely either decrease the dialogue or increase the game length. And finally, I would just improve optimization for lower end computers, because a lot of people in the Nancy Drew community don't have these high-end PCs, and we are obviously shifting, like the world itself is shifting towards, you know, more affordable options for PCs, but a lot of people are still playing on laptops, and a lot of people that are on laptops usually don't have high-end gaming laptops, and that can be a bit of a struggle for some people. And for those longtime fans that maybe can't afford a new PC, it's definitely a lot nicer to be able to play a game with a semi-good frame rate on a lower end PC. Now again, if you got too low end, that's just on you to get a better PC. But you know, yeah, I don't know. That's just my thing. And I hope that answers your question, Bevel. This final question comes from Story Retold, Kalina Herman of Story Retold. Go check her out. Link in the description. She does amazing content, and I will never stop promoting her. Anyways, her question is: if you were to lead the design of a Nancy Drew game, what would the game be about, and what elements would you emphasize? For example, the story, puzzles, exploration, cinematics, etc. Now that's a great question. If I were the design lead of a Nancy Drew game, I would be terrified, first off, because having the legacy of the past 30-odd games before me, would be terrifying to live up to that. But second, that being said, I actually like the idea of Mystery of the Seven Keys. Again, we know nothing about that. You can check out, I've made a few videos on this, check it out in the link in the description, but we don't know anything about Mystery of the Seven Keys, which is kind of exciting because it leaves it open to interpretation of all kinds. As for the actual story, I'm not really sure where I would want Mystery of the Seven Keys to go. I think it would I like the idea of going to a castle, and I think part of that has to do, I think, with the end scene of Midnight in Salem, where Nancy's on the phone with Ned saying, I know where we're going to go next. We're going to go to Austria. Did you know that there's this castle with like 1 billion rooms? And I was like, you know what? We haven't been to a castle in a little while, and I think it would be kind of cool to go back to a castle. And Mystery of the Seven Keys could just lead to sort of a Tomb of the Lost Queen style thing where you keep finding keys that open new doors, and I think it would just be really cool. But again, I don't know how you really do a story with that. That's where I'm not overly smart, but I don't think it should be a scary game, because we've had Midnight in Salem, it wasn't really a scary game, but it's sort of classed as a scary game. We had Ghost of Thornton Hall. Those two specifically are quite recent in the scary game lineup, and then obviously Captive Curse and Shadow of the Water's Edge. So I think if we did like a non-scary game, I think that could be pretty good. The next thing I would include is Ned as a physical character, because I'll tell you what, I think it's about time that he's brought in as a physical character, because it could be awesome if it was just like Nancy and Ned doing this mystery, or they're going on vacation and they do this mystery. I think it could be, or uncover this mystery, it could be really cool. And having Ned there for the first time in person would be awesome. But they would have to get his look right. If they don't get his look right, it's just not going to work. I'm really sorry. So yeah, I would say include Ned as a physical character would be quite high on the list. The story should also be rich with detail and with good twists. I want references to past games in the story. I want things to seem like they're going one direction, all of a sudden they just take a turn in the left direction. You're like, oh my gosh. And like that stuff to me is so exciting and just fully engaging. But again, it has to be done right. It has to be paced well, because if the pacing's wrong, you lose the audience. It's just not going to work. I also really want an abundance of puzzles. Maybe not like Shadow of the Water's Edge and Sea of Darkness. Like those, I mean, they obviously are great. I love the puzzles in those games, don't get me wrong. But that had like a ton of puzzles. I think a little bit less than those games, but a lot more than Midnight in Salem would be just perfect. That'd be awesome. Expansive environments would also be really cool. Being able to see like fully fleshed out environments, like really huge buildings, just stuff like that would be awesome. And again, if we went to a castle, being able to see more of the castle than what we saw in like The Haunting of Castle Malloy or The Captive Curse would be just the coolest thing. I would love to see that. Huge environments. Not like Dark Souls huge, but just huge environments would be cool. Another thing I'd love to try and bring back is the classic style of opening and closing letters to the games. Now, I'm gonna say, when I say classic, I mean like going back as far as like Danger on Deception Island, Shadow Ranch, Blackmore Manor, all that stuff, where you start out the game with this letter, and we see some pictures and screenshots of stuff that's gonna happen, or Nancy's journey, I guess, to where we are now. And I just think seeing stuff like that is so important to build up the backstory of the game, because we didn't really get that in Midnight in Salem. We saw some, 3D cinematics of the location that Nancy was at, but we didn't really get much in the way of, a mystery leading up to that. And that it just didn't kind of work for me, because we weren't really pulled into this mystery. We were going to get a book for Nancy's dad, I don't know, it didn't quite work for me. And I think Nancy Drew fan Julia, what she did with her Treasure in the Royal Tower remaster, which by the way I haven't made a video on yet, but I plan on doing that soon. What she did with her opening letter in this remaster was she had the letter, and the camera sort of panned down the letter, and then all of a sudden we saw these like little screenshots showing up from in the game, and then we zoomed out and we are in the hotel room of Wickford Castle. Like, that to me was so successful, and it worked well, and that's what I think should be done. And I mentioned this in this previous question, but I want to, again, keep the navigation style or improve it to just something that's better and more fine-tuned, but I also want to give the option for a classic navigation style, where, in the classic games, you're simply pointing your mouse in the direction you want to go, you click, and then the next frame appears. It doesn't transition there, it appears. I think giving players the option to do that, and still have the option to look around like you do in Midnight in Salem, I think that could be awesome, because it's just, from my understanding, it shouldn't be that hard to get rid of that transition. It would just be, you click here, the camera moves to here, no transition. I think giving that option could be a huge thing for Nancy Drew fans, especially those that get motion sick rather easily. It would be a big help. I would definitely keep and possibly even improve the 3D inspection option of items. So when you get like an inventory item, I love that you could look at it up close and sort of manipulate it and 3D view it and all this stuff. What I would improve though is I would probably give it the option to completely give it a 360 degree view in every direction of the object. I would love to even like zoom in and zoom out with the scroll wheel just to get a nice close-up view of some of these objects, but maybe that'll be improved for the next game, who knows. I would also want to include a ton more, I'm going to use the word legible here, Nancy Drew Easter eggs. So we obviously had the physical Easter egg that was in the bush or whatever, in the Perry house in Midnight in Salem, but that to me was like, someone went to the kitchen, threw an egg in the bush and said, there's an Easter egg. Like, it's just not doing it for me. What I want is decorated Easter eggs, hidden, that you have to get through doing puzzles or clicking on a place like 10, 15 times in a row. I want those Easter eggs back. I want little references to past games. Like, they had the Coco Kringle and a few screenshots from past games and some other things you couldn't see, but what I wanted more was to have like even verbal references like show up a lot more. I want to see little posters for Wickford Castle or something. I wanted more of that sense that we are in the Nancy Drew universe still, and these things in Nancy's past did happen. I love sort of that confirmation, and we didn't really get a whole lot of that in this game, and hopefully we get that for the next game. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm hoping. That's what I would do if I were to design a Nancy Drew game. I'd include a lot more of those for sure. Next thing I would do is bring back Bess and George, because FYI, we haven't seen Bess and George or interacted with them since 2014. The last game we saw them in was the Shattered Medallion. It's been years, like 8 years since we saw them, man. That's a long time. I think it'd be great if we brought them back. And they're just fun. They're just fun characters to have, and hopefully that we see them in the next Nancy Drew game. But I know that if I were leading the game, I would definitely bring them back. Ideally, I'd bring Bess, George, Frank, Joe, Ned, and Deirdre all into one game and have this mental. Oh, how awesome would that be if you had all those characters, and maybe even if it wasn't just one game, if it was like a series of games, and all you guys are solving this massive mystery that arcs over like 3 games. That would be so cool. That would be awesome. That would be really cool. I'd also bring back the classic interactive style task list and journal that we had in games, like, I don't know, 10 to 32. Because that to me is just way more satisfying than the game saying, all right, you've done this. I want to know when I've done it. I want to be the one that says, check, all done. That's not checked off yet. You know, stuff. I want that stuff. I want that back. Instead of my cell phone saying, good job, you've done it. Here's what you're supposed to do next with immense detail. I'm like, no, I want a brief overview of what I'm supposed to do next. Not like a step-by-step solution. And finally, I would really emphasize on bringing a new makeover to the user interface, because I am not a fan of just the white icons, the white cursors, this very bland white interface. It doesn't work for me. I need the color. I need the classic Nancy. I need little renders of the icons. I want that. That to me is just so much more exciting and like world building than these white icons when there's like 5 keys in your inventory and they all look the same. How are you supposed to know which one's which? I want to visually see it, and it just didn't work for me, and I wanted more. So I would definitely improve that. And that about wraps it up for today's episode, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you have any questions you want me to answer in the next Q&A episode, which should come a month from today, please comment them on this video, comment on my latest Instagram post, comment on my latest blog post. The link for the blog, by the way, is in the description below. Go check it out. A lot of great stuff happening there. Keep up with it, and you will just see a bunch more Nancy Drew stuff. It's awesome. To those that sent in questions, thank you guys so much. I hope that I gave you a reasonable answer to your question. Except for Code Link, I'm very sorry. Once again, I can't quite give you a great answer for yours, but one day I will be able to. I promise you that. I will read the rest of the Nancy Drew books. I just don't know when. I will give you an answer one day, I promise. Anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Have a wonderful rest of your day.